Hey, if you're watching this video, you're probably trying to figure out whether or not Cyberpunk 2077 is worth buying. That or some algorithm has gone horribly wrong. Assuming the former is true, I'll give you the short answer first, so if you want, you can mark one more tally under the yes column and move on. In short, it is a very good game that will not disappoint if you're looking for an open world RPG to sink far too many hours of your life into. There are a number of things that I think are important to know before going into the game, and I have a lot of thoughts on them, but we'll save that for the long answer. Now, if you're still here, let's get started with the long answer, and don't worry, no major spoilers of any kind ahead. Now, for the sake of the interested consumer and avid gamer, there are really four big things I want to talk about. The mechanics of the game, the world you play in, optimization, and the story. Again, there will be no major spoilers in this video. There probably won't even be any minor ones aside from the visuals like what you're seeing now. So, to begin with, the mechanics are a lot. I've played more than my fair share of RPGs, and I can confidently say that this is the most intimidated I've been by the mechanics of one of them for some time. The leveling system is similar to most you'll see in any big RPG, but the sheer number of skills, perks, and paths you can take is really wild. While I haven't gotten to test this yet, I think the game offers a lot in the way of playstyles. This might lend itself to greater replayability, maybe not. It sort of depends on how much that matters to you. See, I'm the kind of guy who will pick up a single-handed weapon and a shield and a bow in most playthroughs of Skyrim and I'll be set. So it doesn't matter as much to me, but it's worth mentioning. There's also this pretty interesting hacking mechanic. Imagine VATS from Fallout, but instead of selecting limbs to shoot, you're selecting devious ways of hacking devices and enemies in slow motion. This is neat, but I found I used it far less often than I think the game wants you to. Again, there's a lot of versatility in the way you play this game, and I was never too bothered by this, nor do I think it hindered my enjoyment of the game. But honestly, those might be the most interesting mechanical elements of the game. There are many instances in which you can choose to stealth or brute force your way through an encounter, and they go about as you'd expect. Stay out of the field of vision of enemies and security cameras, all marked and watching with Assassin's Creed or Skyrim-like detection meters, or run and gun your way through with bullets and damage counters flying like you're playing Borderlands. The combat overall is fine, or even good at times, but it's really nothing too special, to be honest. Even with the hacking elements added in for flavor and fun, it's pretty run-of-the-mill. Well executed, but run-of-the-mill. Pretty intentional, by the way, that I'm using other games and their elements to describe Cyberpunk, but we'll talk about that more toward the end of the video. Now, as far as the story and story elements of Cyberpunk go, there's a lot to talk about. As critical as I want to be about this game, I think CD Projekt Red's true colors shined beautifully here. They did what they do best very well. The storytelling is fantastic. There's a great ratio of cutscene to gameplay, and every quest you complete is interesting. Even the side quests are interesting, which is a big deal. The storylines are intriguing, the characters you deal with are unique and interesting, the dialogue is pretty decent, and the things you say, decisions you make, actually kind of matter, especially in the beginning of the game, and I think they did something genuinely really brilliant here to kick the game off from the start. At the very beginning of your playthrough, you select one of three backstories, so to speak, or backgrounds. You can be a nomad, a street kid, or a corpo, and this choice actually matters a lot more than you might think. Not only does this decide which prologue you get and shape your first couple hours of play, but it also affects how people interact with you throughout the entire game. And I'd even argue it can subconsciously affect how you play the game. For example, for my first playthrough, I picked Street Kid. Gangs, drugs, criminals, loan sharks, these are the things I had in mind when I started this playthrough. And you know what? I played that way. I honestly found myself altering my decisions in dialogue and story elements based on my prescribed background. It was really interesting, and I think this move deserves a lot of respect for those at Projekt Red who made it happen. All that having been said, all those praises having been sung, there's still a lot of work to do on this game, honestly. As many of us expected, the game is fairly buggy. Even after the delays on launch and multiple patches they've announced over the last few weeks, I suspect a lot of this will be fixed over time. But for now, we're still dealing with stuff like this.
Fucking drive, Jackie!
I can't fucking hear
Come
my gun
on,
at all.
B, shoot!
I am shooting!
Chingada madre!
What? Okay.
Morgan Blackhand and Waylon Boa Boa. The greater the risk, the bigger the bounty, kids. Or so they say. But you can only be a major league player for so long. The faster you live, the faster you burn out. If you don't get a bullet to the brain first.
Now, you might be tempted to say, and rightfully so, well, that was some weird stuff, but are you sure it isn't just that your computer isn't up to the task, your hardware isn't good enough? And that'd be a fair question, but I played on medium to high settings with specs at or above the recommended hardware listed for this game by CD Projekt Red. Even still, my hardware could be the issue, which brings me to an important point. Optimization. This game, as far as I can tell, isn't poorly optimized. The problem is it's very well made, and the hardware you're looking at for a good experience on PC should cost you a pretty penny. For a very non-trivial number of people who are on the fence about buying Cyberpunk on PC, one of the biggest sticking points is going to be hardware and performance. If you clicked on this video because you are currently on the fence about buying Cyberpunk on PC, before any further consideration, take a look at the recommended specs. In fact, I'm going to put them right here. They're going to be over here. Over. The mirrored stuff on the webcam is so weird. They're going to be right here where I'm pointing vaguely in this area. Okay? If you don't at least meet these specifications, I might recommend waiting to pick the game up. It's gonna tear your graphics card apart if you aren't ready for it. Now, if you're still interested, but kind of on the fence, you've got the hardware to play it, you've got the money to buy it, you're just not sure if it's everything it's hyped up to be, let's talk about that. To my understanding, some of the biggest reasons this game has been so hyped for so long is the sheer expansiveness, the visual style, the design, the beauty and attention to detail in the world setting you'll be playing in. There are other reasons, of course.
You're breathtaking.
But the aesthetic of the game is a big deal. Let me be the 1000th person to tell you that the game is genuinely gorgeous. It is every bit as ugly beautiful as you want it to be, from the neon skyline to the trashed alleyways. It looks fantastic. And it isn't just the colors and general aesthetic of the city that give the setting such immersive beauty and feel. Everywhere you go in the city, you can find all kinds of characters and things that give the city life. Drunks on the curbside, half passed out, a group of teens partying, doing their thing, people just living their lives, and all kinds of tiny, impressive details like that really make the city feel alive. But this is where we get to one of the biggest letdowns of this game, and to my ultimate conclusion. Very little of this detail is interactive. You can't have a real chat with that drunk. You can't join the partiers. You can only have meaningful interactions with the characters at waypoints predetermined for you by the developers, just like any other open world RPG you know and love. Please stop typing that comment about unrealistic expectations. Just hold on, put your pitchforks and your torches down. This isn't to say that the game is bad for not being able to do these things, for not having these things, but what I'm trying to get across is that it's not everything it's hyped up to be. Not quite, anyway. Cyberpunk 2077 has been possibly the most anticipated game of 2020, and possibly even years before. The immense hype has stirred some serious expectations from myself and others who have been waiting patiently and not so patiently for its final release, and for quite some time. But here's the final verdict. It's just a really pretty, really well executed open world RPG. After following its development, finally playing the game for hours and hours, getting a feel for it, and then reading more about it afterward, and taking the time to write a script for a video, my long answer to the question, is Cyberpunk 2077 good, is actually summed up pretty well by something I said my first live stream of the game, before I even started playing. What I was saying was, I'm really worried. I'm a little worried that this is going to be like what the new Mountain Blade was to me. Bannerlord. This is going to be like what Bannerlord was to me. I was super hyped for it, right? Super hyped for Bannerlord because I loved Warband so much. And then Bannerlord came out and it was kind of just the same thing but slightly more polished, I guess. And I'm kind of worried that's what Cyberpunk is going to be. It's going to be the same thing as all these other RPGs we love, like the Elder Scrolls and the Fallout series, Red Dead, you know? But in a cyberpunk setting. That's all it's going to be. And honestly, if that is what it is, cool, because we all love those other games for a reason. Having another one, awesome. But, you know, we'll see. We'll see. I just don't want to get too hyped, but I'm kind of like really fucking hyped. Honestly, that's pretty much it. Cyberpunk is a really great game, but I wouldn't call it the next generation of open world RPGs. It's more so a culmination of everything we've loved in RPGs we've played in the last decade. It's the best of Grand Theft Auto, it's the best mechanics of Borderlands, the most innovative mechanics of Watch Dogs, and of Fallout, all wrapped in a beautifully ugly cyberpunk bow. So yeah, I'd recommend it quite strongly. Just be sure you can run it satisfactorily and go into it with reasonable expectations. It is the best of RPGs now, but probably not the future.